Barry had taken to talking to the paintings. Ever since the gallery had been closed and he was alone, wandering through its empty corridors, where he was the security guard, you see, he'd found himself saying things out loud. "Plain sailing?" He'd ask a man far out at sea, rocking on a stormy ship. Or, "Are you still not out of bed?" He'd joke at a lady reclining in the background of a portrait. They never answered back, but it gave Barry something to do now the gallery was empty all the time. Sometimes he'd tell them his problems. "I just don't seem to be able to get into the Christmas spirit this year," he found himself telling two lions and their cubs as he stood in front of the large painting. "Whatever I seem to do, it just doesn't seem like Christmas." This was true. Normally, the gallery had Barry rushed off his feet at Christmas, running around stopping kids in party hats from crayoning where they shouldn't, or making sure old ladies didn't slip with their Christmas shopping on the way to the cafe. Barry loved it though, and he always came to work with a big smile on his face and a selection of terrible Christmas jumpers. But this year, Barry didn't feel like smiling. This year, Barry feared he'd become a true Christmas Grinch. Nothing could get him in the festive mood. Not the Christmas lights in town or the carols on the radio. Not the Santa hat donned by his bus driver or the cracker jokes his friends from bingo texted him. Not even bringing out the big guns of festive cheer, a hot mince pie and custard, which Barry reserved for the final week of Advent, feeling sure that this would halt his dreadful transformation. But no. The closer it got to Christmas, the worse it got. It was as though his arms were getting hairier. His face was becoming greener, and most importantly, his heart was becoming sourer and sadder and meaner. Barry felt as though he'd been well and truly Grinched, and he had no way to stop it. But we can't blame Barry for that, because to be fair to him, he had a good reason. You see, normally, what Barry loved about Christmas was his son, Sam. Sam didn't live with Barry, he lived in London with his mum. But every year, he came up for 2 whole weeks during the Christmas holidays. And this, quite frankly, was the best bit of Barry's year. They had all their own special Christmas traditions. Sam would visit Barry at work, and they'd look at their favourite paintings. Then, they'd get the biggest hot chocolate you'd ever seen from the cafe, with extra marshmallows and whipped cream that came past their noses. Then, they'd do the Christmas shop, whizzing through the supermarket on trolleys, throwing in whatever they wanted: roast potatoes, cheese strings, hula hoops and pigs in blankets. But this year, Sam wasn't coming to Hull for Christmas. This year, they'd all decided that it'd be safer for Sam if he stayed in London and spent Christmas with his mum. And although Barry had agreed with this decision, and although he'd told Sam he didn't mind, Barry couldn't help it. He felt sad. And as we got closer and closer to Christmas, that sadness grew until, as we've just heard, it left Barry feeling well and truly Grinched. On Barry's last day of work, he wandered through the gallery, checking the security cameras and wiping dust from the paintings. Everything looked just as he expected. "You all ready for Christmas?" he asked one of the milkmaids in the painting to his right. She didn't answer. When he made his way back round to the front door, however, a surprise was waiting. A large white envelope covered the mat. Crisp and fresh, it looked brand new. Barry frowned. He was sure it wasn't there when he came in, and he hadn't heard the postman come. It was addressed to him, so he opened it. Inside was a card. Barry smiled. On the front was a picture he knew well. It was a drawing Sam had done of his favourite painting, the one he and Barry stood in front of every year, the one Barry had found himself telling he wasn't in the Christmas spirit. The oil painting of the 2 lions and their cubs. When Sam had first seen this painting, he couldn't have been more than 4 or 5. He was a bundle of madness back then, never standing still for more than a second, but that painting put him on pause. He just stared and stared at it, until at least after 5 minutes he let out a gigantic roar. He'd begged Barry for a cat for years after that. "Please, Dad," he said, "a hairy one with its very own mane." Barry had always said no, but now, looking down at this card, he couldn't really remember why. Inside the card, it read, "If you're alone at Christmas time, you might just meet a friend of mine." Barry frowned. He had no idea what that meant. He repeated it back to himself. "If you're alone at Christmas time, you might just meet a friend of mine." Then suddenly, something funny happened. Something Barry couldn't quite explain. If he had been a man who believed in magic, he might have said he heard a loud roar coming from the painting. But as he was not, he'd only shake his head and rub his ears. But then when he looked at the painting again, he became very confused because he could have sworn there were 3 lion cubs all these years he'd looked at it, but now there seemed to be only 2. "Well, I never," said Barry. I must have been wrong." But then, at that moment, he heard a sound from behind him. Could that be? Surely not. But then it came again. A meow. Slowly, Barry turned round, and there, bold as brass, stood a kitten, a tan Maine Coon with fur fluffed like a lion's mane and a Christmas bow round its neck. "All right, little one. All right," said Barry, scooping her up. "How on earth did you get in here?" Barry walked all around the gallery, but he didn't find an answer. There were no open windows or gaps in the skirting, no mother cat or door ajar. And if he was honest, that didn't surprise him, because even as he asked the question, he knew the answer deep down in his heart. And he'd never tell anyone about it, in case they thought he was silly. Sam. Sam didn't want him to be alone. "Well, little one, looks like it's just you and me," he said, tucking the kitten deep inside his coat. "I hope you like turkey." And as Barry locked up the gallery and walked home, with that kitten snuggled up on his chest, he realised something. That the sadness growing inside had gone. And in its place was a little warm ball purring away.